They noticed it first on the border channels, those odd stretches of static where human signals used to buzz, chatter, and argue. At first, the council believed it was another tantrum, the kind humans occasionally threw when annoyed. But within hours, all diplomatic lines with Earth were dead. Not scrambled, not jammed, just absent. Human ambassadors vanished from council communications. Earth's trading stations didn't respond to docking requests. Even the loudest Terran news feeds, usually impossible to ignore, had gone cold. Silence. Cold and deliberate. The Kalari envoy made light of it. Perhaps they've finally learned some decorum, he joked in the Hall of Accord. But the laughter it earned was hollow. By the end of the cycle, that laughter had evaporated, replaced by side glances and quiet worry. A full planetary network, a species known for never shutting up, had dropped off the map without a warning shot or crisis report. Attempts to reach Earth were met with nothing. Not deflection, not hostility. Nothing. The orbital stations remained. In place, fully powered, broadcasting no transponders, no shuttles launched, no satellites adjusted orbit, no patrols ran interference. It was as if the entire Terran system had frozen mid-breath, all systems humming, but no one home. A team of Drevik couriers dispatched a diplomatic drone into Sol space, hoping to trigger a response. The drone sent telemetry for exactly 4 minutes before transmission ceased. No debris, no signal disruption. It was as if it had been swallowed. The only thing the Council's sensors picked up afterward was a faint pulse, an encoded signal in an old Earth dialect that took hours to decrypt. You were heard. That was when the word retaliation began to circulate. The humans had never been subtle in their warnings. Their diplomacy was blunt but consistent. They argued, but they never turned away from the table. Until now. That's what terrified the Council the most, not action, but the complete lack of reaction. Even when humanity was pushed, humiliated, exploited, they always responded. Sometimes with rage, sometimes with clever retaliation. But they always responded. They weren't responding now. Council leaders assembled in emergency session. The human silence was not random. It was strategic, not a glitch, not a system failure, an intentional withdrawal. An entire civilization had gone quiet on purpose. And when humans did something on purpose, it was never without reason. Tactical scans showed nothing new. No ship build-up, no unusual deployments, no changes to known orbital infrastructure. But somehow, it felt worse than if there had been fleets massing. Even their warships, usually tagged across dozens of systems, had dropped off locator grids. The Avaran high strategist voiced what everyone was afraid to admit. They're preparing something, or they've already prepared it. Silence became the new language of fear. Across the galaxy, systems paused. Diplomats sent more messages. No replies came. Traders rerouted around Earth's trade zones. Still nothing. No confirmation, no aggression. Just a stillness that grew heavier with every hour. Like the breath before a scream, or the breath before the executioner's axe fell. The Council's assumptions fractured within days. The silence spread, not in signal, but in consequence. Entire sectors once dependent on Terran trade, medicine, alloys, navigation tech, reported shortages. Emergency requisitions were made, but none of the replacements worked like human systems. No diagnostics matched Earth's peculiar code architecture. No AI substitutes adapted as quickly as human-trained constructs. For the first time in decades, the galaxy remembered what inefficiency felt like. Velrek of the Zenthari intelligence branch accessed restricted Earth records buried deep in the Council's archives. He'd always argued that humans weren't just another species, they were a cultural weapon, one that disguised its seriousness behind crude humor and chaos. Now, Every human behavioral model was useless. The silence didn't fit any psychological pattern they'd modeled. Velrek read one old Terran transcript from a century-old skirmish. When humans stop talking, it's not because they're done. It's because they've decided words aren't worth it. He played it 3 times, desperate to understand. The Council authorized the Harmony Fleet to send a full diplomatic envoy toward Earth, non-threatening, unarmed vessels. Flagships painted in Council emblems, broadcasting signals of peace on every channel. The fleet crossed the heliopause without incident, approached Pluto, passed the moons, reached Mars orbit, no resistance, but also no acknowledgement. Earth's orbital defense platforms were powered, active, but still as statues. Protocol dictated one vessel break formation and approach further to initiate a formal handshake. The Lurek Dawn, piloted by veteran envoy ships with perfect diplomatic scores, made the maneuver. Its message, "We come in peace, please advise." What came back wasn't sound or light or even code, it was absence. The Lurek Dawn ceased existing, not exploded. Not damaged, just gone. One moment it was transmitting live footage of Earth's blue curve. The next, static, all sensors flatlined, no debris cloud, no gravitational disturbance, no time lapse. Only a microsecond spike of signal before total blackout. One Earth origin frequency. Binary. Translated, it read, "We are not speaking." Panic rippled through the Council. Half the Harmony Fleet turned back without orders. The other half froze in orbit until finally ordered to retreat. Earth's defenses never moved. They didn't threaten. They didn't chase. They just watched. Velrek compiled every Terran conflict post-2100, every war, every standoff. He found a pattern. Before humanity launched any decisive strike, they always stopped talking, not for drama, but because they no longer negotiated with threats. They didn't taunt. They didn't broadcast. When humans truly committed to a course, they went quiet first. Now, the entire species was quiet. Back in council chambers, leaders debated. Explanations, system failure, rogue AI, civil war on Earth. But none held up. Earth was too unified, too precise in its silence. Not a single faction had spoken. Not a single pirate, scavenger, or fringe outpost had leaked a signal. It wasn't an accident, it was a message, one the galaxy had never heard before, one that said humanity wasn't bluffing anymore. The Council's records stretched back 10 millennia, but nothing in its long, tangled history resembled this. Species had gone extinct. Empires had risen and collapsed. Wars had flared and cooled. But never had a civilization as vast and central as humanity simply withdrawn. Not with destruction, not with threats, with silence. Velrek gathered evidence from every human border region. Old trade logs, dispute resolutions, military deployments, field reports. Patterns emerged that now seemed damning. When the Zilari raided Terran convoys, the Council downplayed it. When humans requested enforcement of treaties during the Kyrex revolts, they were ignored. When Earth's colonies were attacked under Council flag, reparations were promised, never paid. Earth responded then with diplomacy. Always calm, always professional, sometimes irritated, often sarcastic, but never unreasonable, never silent, until now. The more the Council reviewed the archives, the clearer the indictment became. Humanity had shown up when no one else did. They pulled stranded colonies back from the brink. They cured plagues that spread across Council worlds. They shared technology the rest couldn't replicate and fought wars they didn't start. And in return, they were dismissed, mocked, used, tolerated. It wasn't a war humanity was preparing. It was abandonment. Entire border systems began reporting anomalies. Listening posts in the Orion sector picked up strange gravitational distortions, like mass shifts that weren't accompanied by any ships. Trade convoys rerouted to avoid Terran-influenced routes, fearing the unknown. Patrols sent to investigate disappeared. No warnings, no distress calls, no debris. And still, Earth said nothing. Then the quiet transmissions began. Subspace whispers, picked up by long-range scramblers. The remnants of Earth's closest allies, small races like the Andari, once protected under Terran pacts, were receiving final communiques. Not threats, not orders, just closure. Messages like, "We will not let them hurt you again, but you must survive on your own now." After that, those allies too went dark. It hit the Council all at once. They hadn't lost humanity's cooperation. They'd lost humanity's concern. Earth no longer viewed the galaxy as worth fixing, and that realization was worse than any war declaration. Velrek stood in the Council chamber and stated it plainly. "This is not revenge. This is rejection. We are not at war with humanity. We are beneath their attention." Chaos erupted. Smaller factions called for preemptive action, but against what? No target presented itself. Earth had not fired. Earth had not moved. Earth had simply withdrawn its influence like a tide pulling back from shore. And now the galaxy began to feel the emptiness. Terran-inspired AI systems across Council fleets began malfunctioning. Silent kill switches that no one had realized were embedded. Medical equipment derived from Earth's biotech stopped updating. Translation software developed with Terran neural matrices began producing errors. Not all at once, subtly, as if someone had turned off the lights one bulb at a time. The fear wasn't that humanity would return with weapons. The fear was they wouldn't return at all, and the galaxy, spoiled, unprepared, unworthy, would be left to rot in its own silence. The Council's final attempt came not from strength but desperation. A coalition of remaining core worlds sent a last fleet, not a force of conquest, but a plea for resolution. No weapons, no arrogance. Just emissaries in pristine white hulls, their vessels packed with linguists, historians, and former human allies. Their mission was clear. Beg. Not for forgiveness, but for relevance. They reached Sol space with careful ceremonial grace, broadcasting peace offerings in over 200 Terran dialects. They were not stopped, not attacked, not warned. They simply entered the system and vanished from every known registry. For hours, nothing. Then a signal, brief, encrypted in a way only older Earth protocols would recognize. It unlocked a single message, rendered, not in words, but in stripped visual code. One sentence. "You chose the Council. You may now keep it." The silence resumed. When the emissary fleet reappeared days later, they drifted in orbit around Neptune, intact but damaged in a way no one understood. Their crews were alive, but wrong. They could not speak Galactic Standard anymore. Their minds could process thought but not translate it into recognizable language. Neural translators failed. Memory implants glitched. They could no longer communicate with each other, let alone the Council. Whatever humanity had done, it had severed them from the rest of the galaxy, not physically, but cognitively. Their presence now served as a warning carved in flesh. We will not be heard, so neither will you. In the weeks that followed, the collapse began. Black market tech based on Terran designs began to degrade. Entire Council fleets lost their AI control matrices. Navigation systems scrambled. Shipyards froze mid-production. Pirate syndicates rose instantly, devouring weakened trade routes. Star systems that had once relied on Terran infrastructure now found themselves blind, deaf, and disconnected. No missiles, no fleets, just decay. Council worlds began defecting from their own alliance, seeking neutrality in a conflict that never officially began. The Council itself, so proud, so bureaucratically eternal, fractured. Species turned inward. Borders hardened, treaties dissolved overnight. Velrek, the last voice still documenting Earth's silence, recorded one final transmission. They didn't retaliate. They removed themselves. We believed their strength was in their weapons, their speed, their fury. It wasn't. It was in their willingness to show up, for everyone. And we killed that willingness with arrogance. Humanity's final act wasn't vengeance, it was absence. And that absence became the void into which the galaxy collapsed. Years later, in the ruins of a once thriving council capital, a faded engraving was found on a piece of broken alloy, undoubtedly Terran in origin. No context, no date, just a phrase, burned into metal. You taught us silence. We learned it well. And across the stars, the silence deepened. Not because Earth was gone, but because it had finally completely stopped caring.